In government Monday night, the planning board met virtually and most of the meeting was centered around the redevelopment discussion of 83 Morse Street or the Space Center. Representatives from the Space Center presented to the board their plans for the redevelopment of another building at the Morse Street location.
These are the conditions that you see. They're vacant buildings. They're along the riverfront. And we see it as a real opportunity to get in and clean up the area, clean up the blighted buildings, restore the riverfront and make it accessible, and then create another element, as Dave said, another element of this project that would be productive for the project. Rob, if you want to get to the next one. So this last phase, as I said, is going to complete the project and clean things up. We're envisioning that this would be a primarily residential with commercial, so a mixed use project that would be we think very synergistic with the rest of the project that we have now. There's a real trend in the industry toward mixed use, mixing residents with offices and with entertainment uses. So, to give a little idea of what we have in mind on the residential side, we are thinking about apartments. Often when communities think about apartments, they have a certain image in their mind of projects that maybe are, not high quality, or that they're a little bit concerned about that. I wanted to give a couple of examples of some projects that we've done recently that we would be modeling this project after. The one that we're looking at right now is a project called Orpheum. It's in Dover, New Hampshire. It's about 130 units. It's 130 units. And it's a combination, what we're looking at is a combination of, on the upper floors are apartments, and on the ground floor is a combination of co-work space, restaurant space, and lobby. And it's all designed to interact as one space. And it's a great community space.
Following the presentation, the group fielded questions from the board. Then the board scheduled a site visit for the location on Morse Street to view the building and area that is being considered for renovation. To end the meeting, the board discussed future meetings and if they would be held in person or virtually. The next meeting for the planning board will be on September 20th. The Board of Selectmen met Tuesday evening for the last summer session. Starting September 7th, the board will be back to meeting weekly. Representatives from Moderna appeared before the board to discuss an application for a VIF license. The license was approved. Later, the board announced that fall town meeting will reconvene on Monday, October 18th. Before adjournment, Town Manager Tony Mazzucco presented a letter of commendation to the board from Police Chief Brooks. The letter details outstanding work from Officer Mazzola and Officer Hoyle regarding an armed incident in August.
From Chief Brooks, I hereby commend Officer Jamie Mazzola and Officer Jennifer Hoyle for their remarkable restraint and professionalism during an armed encounter on August 16th. The officers responded to a call for the purpose of keeping the peace while the calling party removed personal property from their father's home. Upon arrival, officers encountered the man's father, who was clearly intoxicated. Within a short time, the father stepped into another room and reappeared carrying a handgun. The officers drew their firearms and issued verbal commands for their father to drop the gun. Despite the officer's commands, the father swung the firearm around him, hiding it from the officer's view. A moment later, he swung back around, brandishing the gun several times in a back-and-forth motion towards the officers. The officers used remarkable restraint by not firing at the subject. Instead, they used verbal commands to convince him to put the firearm down. Eventually, the subject lowered the firearm, and a family member was able to retrieve it from him. Situations like this one can easily end with a shooting. The fact that it is not is a credit to the training, professionalism, and good judgment of Officers Mazzola and Hoyle, as well as Chief Brooks and his whole team. They are hereby commended for their exemplary service. William G. Brooks, Chief of Police.
Thanks to the Norwood Police Department for keeping us all safe. The Board of Selectmen meets again on September 7th. The school committee met remotely Wednesday night. Health Director Sigal Reese provided an update on the town's vaccination rate. Superintendent David Thompson provided an update on the COVID-19 procedures for the upcoming school year.
There are other ones that are just came out yesterday from the DESE, which I think I'll share in a little bit. But COVID-19 situation chart. So a student identified as symptomatic, meaning that they have COVID symptoms. Students assessed by the nurse and placed in a medical waiting room until they can go home. They cannot go home on a bus. Someone has to come and get them. The student will get a PCR or molecular COVID-19 test. If they're positive, self-isolation for at least 10 days and until 24 hours after they've passed without fever or other symptoms. If they're positive or if they do not test. If they test as negative, they can return after 24 hours have passed without symptoms and are free of fever, and that you can't take Tylenol and say you're free of a fever. Okay. So if an individual is symptomatic with COVID-19 while at home, they should stay at home. Don't come to school. Stay at home and call your healthcare provider. Get tested, but still please contact the school nurse.
School nurse leader Jill Driscoll provides an update on COVID-19 testing policies.
The opportunity for the test and stay and the pool testing information was just released about 2 weeks ago. And I've been working very hard to quickly get this in place for the beginning of the school year. If people can just keep an eye on the webpage, as soon as things are in place, I will make sure it's posted there so staff and students and families can understand how to sign up for all those options. The program that we ran through the spring and the summer ended on August 31st.
For additional questions about the COVID-19 policy, please contact the nurse at your school. Later, the committee voted to continue remote meetings indefinitely. Before adjournment, the committee approved the request to establish a cross-country team at the middle school. The school committee meets again next week. For complete government coverage, tune into the NCM Government channel or watch on demand at nordcommunitymedia.org.